Hello to everyone. Thank you all for joining me at this time. My name is Shavi Zane, and I'm coming on to do a message. This message is called The Black Widow's Illusionary Universe. So this message that I'm coming forward to bring, it may resonate with some of you, but it may not. If it doesn't, come back for a message that is more in alignment with what's happening with you. But I want to first start off by telling you all about a dream that I had, which led me to do this message, as well as some things that I saw in the physical that kind of confirmed that this message needed to be brought forth. So in this dream, I was actually like a spectator. Okay, it was like I would traveled in spirit to go and view what was happening with someone else. So there was no, in the dream, no one there knew that I was present. Okay, I guess that's the best way I can say it. So in the dream, I traveled to a man's home, and this man was in his home. He obviously was dealing with some mental discord, okay, some mental imbalance, okay, and his house was full of very huge spiders. I'm talking about huge spiders. And there was many of them, over 100. And the spiders, it was so many that they was crawling on him. And this man it was like he was completely oblivious to these spiders, okay? And apparently, maybe he had some people outside that was concerned about him because a spiritual teacher showed up. It wasn't like a counselor or anybody like that, a doctor. It was like a spiritual teacher that showed up. And this teacher came in with the intention of awakening this man or bringing him back into his reality of the spiders surrounding him. That was his objective. Um, and so he kept trying to get this man to see, like, hey, I need you to pay attention to what's happening around you. You have all of these spiders surrounding you. We need to get rid of them. We have to get these out of here. I need you to awaken. But the teacher was very, from my perspective, just watching, he was so focused on the surface that he was not understanding. He wasn't going deep enough to really penetrate where the deficits were in terms of this man's mental imbalance, okay? So he was only focused on getting him to see that he was surrounded by spiders so that they could get rid of the spiders. And so, again, the spiders was all crawling all over this man, and the man, it wasn't helping him at all, okay? If anything, the teacher was, he was getting rid of the spiders some kind of way, but that was it. So I woke up, y'all. And so this was 3 nights ago that I had this dream. And so I didn't come on to do a message because I was like, I'm not even sure what this means or whether or not I need to bring it forward until the following day. Went into my bathroom and turned the light on, and the biggest spider that I have ever seen in my life was there. Now, I go out into the forest preserve. I've been doing this for at least 4 years now. Forest preserve, parks. I'm a nature woman, okay? That's all I do is stay out in nature. And never seen a spider like that. Never. Until the next day. So the first day I see this spider, the body was probably about this wide, okay, and about this long, and it was hairy, it was black. And so, I thank the Most High God that I'm no longer afraid of the creatures that has been created, because there was a time in my life where I would have, it would have been one of them situations, and I'm sure many of you can relate. And so I took the spider, I put him inside of a container, and I set it outside. So the next day, went into the bathroom, turned on the water in the tub, and a spider even bigger than the first one came crawling out, okay? So I knew that was a sign. I collected that spider, kindly set it outside. Okay, so I'm here now, because apparently there's a message when it comes to these spiders. And so if you yourself have been seeing spiders, especially spiders that are unusually larger than what you're accustomed to, then this message is likely for you, whether it's for you now or for you in the future. So let me get right into it. I feel like, spiders have, when you think about the spiritual meaning of a spider, there's a polarity to everything, even when it comes to the creatures that the Most High created. So on one end, when you think of the spider, you would say, okay, the spider is very creative. Okay, it spins these intricate webs that are very, it's like some people would say it's sacred geometry. Okay, it's very intricate, very detailed, and no two spider webs are the same. And so that's one side of the spider. It's very, very creative. Then on the other end, you can look at the spider as being predatory. Okay, it spins these webs, and that's how it catches its prey. It spins these webs, which are practically transparent, where you could barely see them, and so it's easy to walk into a spider web. It's easy because a lot of times you just don't see it there. So that's why I call this message the Black Widow's Illusionary Universe, because on the other end, that spider, Black widows specifically, the females tend to catch the men, the male spiders, and they mate with them, they have sex with them, and then they eat them. Okay, and generally they do this to the male spiders that are smaller than them. So they'll catch them, they'll mate with them, and then they'll eat them when they're smaller. So I thought about it and I said, okay, so now I understand the polarity of the spider, the meaning of the spider. So what is the message here? And so going back into my dream. One thing that stood out the most about that dream is that the man who was living in the house that was full of spiders, he had he had a strong disconnect from the fact that his house was full of spiders. So much so that even the spiders was crawling all over him, and that still did not bring him into the reality of these spiders. He had become conditioned and very accustomed to being in that environment, and so it became his norm. And so the man, clearly, when I was observing him, he was very fearful. He had a lot of paranoias, and you could see that just by the way that, his movement, his body language, very rigid and timid, and, but it was a fear that he had in his own mind. It had nothing to do with the spiders surrounding him, because he wasn't jumping from the spiders every time they touched him, or he didn't even seem bothered or irritated. It was almost as if he was oblivious to their presence. So he had become so used to this energy that it was almost like he created an illusion in his reality that this was not in existence in his reality. But he sunk so deep into his own mind that the fears that he had was being created within his mind. So maybe he had been in this environment. Maybe initially he had a fear of these spiders until it got so bad. These spiders began to come in in such large numbers. Maybe they was mating and replicating themselves or multiplying so fast that he had to go within his own mind, and this was like a protective measure for him. It was like a survival mode, some sort of a protective measure that he created for himself in his own mind. But once he sunk into his mind to avoid his physical reality, that was even scarier than his reality, because that's where he had all of the fear. That's where he was jumping. Those thoughts that he was actually experiencing, or whatever he was seeing in his own mind, is where his fear lied. And so the spiritual teacher who came in, I feel like he didn't bring anything to really go deep with this man, because the spiritual teacher was very focused on the surface. He was very focused on, I need you to awaken to the fact that there's spiders surrounding you. I need you to awaken to the fact that these spiders need to be gone. You shouldn't be living like this. So the spiritual teacher was not one that actually came with anything of substance. So I feel like for you all, there's two ways to look at this. Some of you have become so conditioned to the uncomfortable things that surround you in your reality, that you've buried yourself in your own thoughts. And so rather than seeing your reality for what it is, in the, what's surrounding you in your physical, in your 3D life, you've gone within your own mind, and there is where you are creating these illusions, these fears, okay? And you are more fearful of your own thoughts and of your own insecurities and of your own past mistakes or your own failures than you are of those things that are surrounding you that needs to be cleared out. I also feel the spider also represents, like I mentioned, creativity. And so for some of you, you have infinite possibilities when it comes to your ability to create. And the signs are all around you, but you don't see it because you're too submerged in your own thoughts. You're too submerged in fear. There's something, it could be stemming for some of you from your religious beliefs. Certain ways that you have been taught by your parents, by society, concerning what spirituality should look like and concerning what your connection to the Most High is supposed to look like. And so it's almost like you're ignoring the fact that there are so many other possibilities out here in terms of how you can become the co-creator of your life and how you can take back authority over your life. It's like you're ignoring that because of the fears that you have buried deep within you. And that is your dominant thoughts for many of you. And so I feel like there's a need to clear your mind of these fears that you have held on to from your past, from past failures, from past heartbreak, past pain, past traumas, whatever it is that you have been through. I feel like there's a need to have this breakthrough. And the breakthrough is going to begin with you acknowledging the fact that many of these things that you're thinking about, they're not a part of your reality yet. Because remember, your mind and your thoughts create things. Some of you are being presented with new opportunities to head down a different path because you're gaining more wisdom, you're gaining more understanding, but there's something that is having, it's a tug of war that you're having within yourself that says, if you take this path, or if you start to explore more down this spiritual path, that somehow you're going to be moving towards something that is in opposition to the Most High, or in opposition to your growth or your divine connection. There's an energy of you needing to definitely walk away from the past. And when you leave the past behind, it's not just leaving behind people, places, and things. It's literally leaving behind a mindset, because that's where your creativity begins. Your creativity begins in your mind, what you're able to imagine, what you're able to envision, internal vision, what you're able to see through your mind's eye. But you limit yourself and you cut yourself off through self-limiting fears. And so I feel like that was the issue with the man in the dream, is that the spiders, for me, they represented two things. I saw the polarity. I saw both. They represented the infinite possibilities of creativity that surrounded him. Infinite possibilities of ways that he could become the co-creator of his life and to establish a new foundation for himself internally and externally. Because more than likely, each one of those spiders was building up webs in his home. He probably had webs all around his home, but I witnessed that in the dream. But obviously that's what spiders do. They create webs. And so the webs, had he been more conscious of what was happening surrounding him, he would have been able to see, the webs represent the infinite possibilities of creating your own universe. Because when you look at a web, and most of the time the spider is there right there in the center of the web, waiting for its blessings to come to it. So the spider creates its own universe. Using this sacred geometry, the spider creates its own universe, and right there in the center it sits and it just waits to attract to it whatever it needs to sustain itself and to continue to thrive. But it expects that the universe that it has created for itself is in alignment with what's necessary to attract what it needs in order to sustain life. So the spider is very confident in its creation, to the point where it doesn't have to go out and catch prey and walk it back to the web. No, it just sits and it waits for the prey to, or for its blessings to come to it, because it anticipates and realizes that its creation, its own universe that it has created, is put together well enough to attract what it needs. And ultimately that is what happens. So that's on one end. The man could have awakened and recognized, looked around him and saw all of the creative possibilities. Is a spider wiser than you? Absolutely not. But a spider recognizes its creative potential and it puts it to work. A spider, a web can get torn down and it'll weave another web within a matter of days, okay? So the spider recognizes the power that it possesses, the creativity that it possesses, and it uses that creativity to create its own universe, and anticipates that through its creation, it's going to attract to it what it needs in order to sustain life. Then on the other side of that, I saw the man being surrounded by, because the spider also represents the feminine energy when it comes to its spiritual nature. So whether you're a man or a woman, just take it how it resonates. You can switch roles, but specifically this man would have been surrounded by, on the other side, if you look at it from a dark side, feminine energies, or a feminine energy that has woven its web and has this man walked right into the Black Widow's illusionary universe. He did not see it. He didn't see it coming. He walked right into it, and the feminine energy that surrounds him is looking to feed off of his weaknesses, because that's what the Black Widow does. That's why it's called the widow. It kills its prey. It kills the male that it attracts to its web after it mates with it. First of all, she gonna get what she want. Okay, I'm gonna get what I want up out of you, and then I'm going to sacrifice you. Some of you, this may ring deeper than I can even express here. Some of you are literally with Black Widows. Okay, whether it's your mama, whether it's your family, your sister, whether it's your wife, your girlfriend, okay? Or on the other end, if you're a female, you could be with a Black Widow man, okay? But however the case may be, some of you have literally been surrounded by feminine energy who is misusing its power because you do not recognize, you have not taken back your own authority and recognize the fact that you are the co-creator of your life. And so it's like you blindly walked into this web, a illusionary universe that this other energy, this feminine energy, has created with the intention to take from you in more ways than one. But the only reason why she felt comfortable with doing that, because I just heard also it's even bigger. I'm being shown a bigger picture, even outside of an individual person. The Jezebel spirit is the Black Widow that creates its illusionary universe, which many people blindly walk into because they are lured in through that sexual energy. They are lured in because they are operating from their root and their sacral chakra. They're operating from their carnal nature, okay? And they haven't done enough work to heal. And so they walk into this illusionary universe of the Black Widow and get trapped. Why? Because they don't realize that they possess power that's far greater than the Jezebel spirit. So they shrink in its presence. You shrink in the presence of that Jezebel spirit. You shrink in the presence of that alluring person who is, sexually enticing, and they're able to trauma bond you and lure you in to feel as if, okay, there's some sort of satisfaction that you'll be able to gain in being with them. But behind all of that, they have a motive. And some of you, because that spiritual teacher that came in was too much on the surface to actually penetrate to the core of where the problems lie. Some of you are being drawn and attracted to spiritual teachers who are keeping you in that shrunken state. They're not showing you the power that you truly possess as a co-creator, okay? They are keeping you in that shrunken state, making you, or not making you, because no one can make you do anything, but they are feeding you wisdom that's not fulfilling enough to reach your soul. That man in the dream needed something that went far beyond the surface of what was happening to him, in terms of externally. He needed to be able to see what was happening from a spiritual perspective. He needed to use his spiritual eyes to see. But that spiritual teacher was not equipped enough to show him past the surface. Maybe that spiritual teacher, wasn't, because obviously someone sent him there. So there was others who trusted this spiritual teacher. They trusted the wisdom that he possessed in order to say, I feel that you are the one that could go in to actually help this person to see the state that they are in. That spiritual teacher was good enough for those who live on the surface. And so the wisdom that they take in is surface wisdom. It doesn't penetrate deep because they're impenetratable, because they still have this artificial coating surrounding them. And so those types of spiritual teachers, you might find these teachers in various places, various religious structures, various spiritual paths, but they don't possess the wisdom to penetrate deep enough to show you what is really beyond the surface. And so that spiritual teacher wasn't doing nothing for this man who was surrounded by all of these spiders. Some of you are being called to take your power back and be open to learning new things. Be open to gaining new wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. But you first got to clear your mind out of the fears that say, if I take this path, if I take the road less traveled, if I seek something outside of what I've been taught and conditioned to believe, I'm going to be ostracized. I'm going to be abandoned. I'm going to be cast out to hell. I'm going to be operating in wickedness because it doesn't look like what the majority say it's supposed to look like. Be careful of the teachers that you're attracted to. If it's keeping you on the surface of life, then that teacher is not for you. And outside of that, the best teacher that you have is yourself, your life experiences. These are the lessons that you can go back and reference. If you want to read a textbook, read the book of your life. Flip back a few chapters. Pay attention to how certain things affected you. And then it's going to help you to understand, because a book it's various chapters. You start from the beginning, you get to the middle, and then you end up at the end. So it's a story that leads up to something towards the end. Obviously, this is not the end for you, because we are multidimensional beings. We are spirits having a human experience. And so this is not your first time here in terms of this lifetime. We've all been here many lifetimes before, some more than others. But I say that to say this is not the end of your story, because we're ever evolving beings. Okay, so this is this is a journey that continues on and on and on. But at this moment in your journey, you're being called to look back. Take a look back for a minute and see what has taken place to lead you up to where you are now. But don't just look at the surface. Don't just look at the events on the surface. Go deeper. Dig deeper. Because beneath the surface, there's some jewels. There's some ancient wisdom that is there that's been buried. For many of you, this wisdom, it travels back many lifetimes. You've been gaining lots of wisdom. Some of you already possess most of the wisdom that you need at this time, at this very moment, but you're afraid to use it to shift your circumstances. So you're being called to utilize that wisdom that you have gained to be your own practitioner. I feel like also purifying your vessel. For some of you, you're going to need to do fasting, intermittent fasting, purifying your vessel, taking salt baths, purifying your vessel by writing things down. I destroy and I release XYZ, XYZ, this fear, this insecurity in spirit and in flesh, and you burn it. That's another way of purifying your vessel and releasing that energy, because the more that you release that energy, the more you create that void space that is necessary for you to attract to you the messages that you need, that's going to help you to be the co-creator of your life. Just like the spider. The web that the spider spins, it is not already full of insects and prey. The web that the spider spins is completely, the only thing that's there is the spider and its illusion and that universe that is creating. Now I say illusionary only because for others, they can't see it with their natural eyes. And so that's why you walk through spider webs all the time, because it's hard to see with the naked eye. So in terms of the universe that the spider creates for itself, which you will be creating your own alternate universe as the co-creator of your life, it will be literally you and your spiritual team working together to create. Okay, creating from a blank canvas though. One that is free of fear, one that is free of insecurities, one that is free of conditioning, one that is free of other people's opinions on how that web should be spun, because you ain't got a spider. When it spins its web, is all from its own creativity that is already imprinted in its DNA. It's imprinted in its blueprint to make this web the way that it makes it. It doesn't have another spider standing in the background talking about, wait, based on the blueprint that I have here, you're going to need to, cut left over there. I'm going to need you to make that pattern over there a little bit sharper, a little bit more square. No, the spider starts from the center and it weaves its web from there, and it gets larger and larger and more expansive and more expansive. So the spider literally controls how big that web is, it gets, depending on how expansive its creativity is. The spider decides how big the web needs to be. And so you, as the co-creator of your life, you possess the ability to create, and it becomes more and more expansive the more that you rise and evolve in your wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. You are creating your universe. And consider that even if you're doing it, you're always creating, whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously. But know this, when you're creating unconsciously, you're working against yourself, because you're likely creating from fear. And so when you're creating from fear, what are you creating? Situations that's going to leave you in survival mode. Relationships that's going to leave you feeling depleted. Friendships that's going to leave you feeling, unbalanced. okay, or having a lot of drama, or, situations, mindsets that's going to leave you feeling insecure. That's what you're creating for yourself when you create unconsciously. But when you create consciously, and you are aware of the fact that you are the co-creator of your life, you are aware of the fact that you have the authority to create your reality through your mind and your imagination, that's when you are empowered. That's when you have taken back your authority. That's when you are creating those things that are in alignment with growth, expansion, evolution. Because now it's like you're not going to, a person that is consciously creating, most people are not going to consciously create traumas. You're not going to consciously create poverty. If once you know that you are the creator of your life, you're going to consciously create in a way where you are attracting things to you that's going to sustain life, that's going to bring life to you. You're going to attract things to you that's going to keep you in a space of thriving, not surviving, but thriving. And so I feel that the spider that makes the larger web is the one who has the more expansive creativity, because it understands that in that the larger the web, the more it attracts, because now there's more space for this attraction to come in. It's not creating obstacles or stumbling blocks on one end. Okay, I have room to attract on this end, but in this area of my life, I cannot attract because I have this cutoff. You see what I'm saying? So I feel like that's what's being brought forward here. If there's any energy of like unforgiveness from your past, I feel like in terms of diving deeper, you might want to turn back a few chapters and see if there's any areas of your life where forgiveness is necessary. Is there any bitterness that's still being held in your heart surrounding the things that you had to go through to get to where you are today? You want to do what's necessary to forgive. Forgiveness is not for that person. The forgiveness is for you. That person benefits from you forgiving them, but you benefit even more so. And so when you release that type of energy of unforgiveness, that's when you have your breakthrough, because that allows you to fully leave the past behind. You could have walked away from people years ago, but if you still carry bitterness or unforgiveness in your heart, then you might as well have stayed right there next to them, because that unforgiveness blocks you from expansion. It blocks your heart chakra, which is that magnetic energy that's projected out into the universe. That is what attracts things to you. An open heart chakra is largely surrounded, it's connected to like the feminine energy. Okay, obviously a male and a female possess the masculine and feminine energies. That's why it's important to have balance between both the yin and the yang. But the feminine energy is the creative energy. The feminine energy is the nurturing energy. It's the one that is emotionally balanced, right? And it creates from a space of love. So if your heart chakra is blocked because of unforgiveness, self-loathing, or anything, any pain from the past, then you're likely not in your creative energy, because you're not going to be able to attract anything to you if you're not projecting the energy of love out into the universe. And so this is where you're being called to open up your heart again if you've closed it off due to past pain. There's a breakthrough that needs to happen, okay? I feel like the energy is picking up though, because even for that man, he literally did attract that spiritual teacher to him. Some part of him was beginning to awaken in his own mind to the fact that he needed to break free of this mental entrapment, self-imposed mental entrapment that he placed himself in. So he did attract that man to him, but he limited, there was a limitation that he had on his understanding. This was subconsciously, I'm talking about in my dream, this would have been a subconscious limitation that he had on his spiritual evolution for him to attract a spiritual teacher that would only touch the surface of helping him to awaken to his powers. I feel like the type of teacher that he attracted to him was one that the teacher himself was too much in his own ego and needed to feel as if he would always be above those who came to him. He's the type of spiritual teacher who will only give you a taste of this and a taste of that, but doesn't want you to go too deep. Because if you go too deep, then you'll discover something within yourself that at some point you will no longer have need for that spiritual teacher. He was one of those. He attracted to him that type of spiritual teacher, one that he would have to be codependent on, rather than awakening and evolving to becoming independent from. He attracted to him that type of spiritual teacher through his narrow perspective of his ability to be the co-creator of his life. And so there was a part of him that was awakening, and so he knew that he needed some help, but he limited his potential, and he attracted a teacher who would also limit his potential by teaching him things that would not allow him to rise above that teacher and to no longer be codependent on his energy. So the teacher had a vested interest, interest in receiving something from this man that would allow him to stay in his ego and to give him this sense of power and authority over this man. So, and I feel like another thing that I just heard is that the man himself that was surrounded by the spiders, the teacher did not want to fully awaken this man on a deeper scale because the teacher saw the potential that the man possessed in his creative energy. Why? Because the teacher saw the spiders. Hundreds of spiders surrounding this man, which represented the man's infinite possibilities in terms of his creativity. The teacher saw it. So it's like the teacher, his objective was to get rid of this man's creative potential, to only awaken him to the things that are on the surface of life, but to keep him blinded to his creative abilities. And so he wanted to get them spiders up out of there. I don't want him to see these. It's time to get rid of this because I need you to be codependent on me and the wisdom that I possess. Because if you unlock that potential that you possess, oh, you're going to be far beyond, far greater than anything that I could express to you. And so what would you need me for? That's a teacher that is still in his own ego, who has not done the work to heal. And man, there's so many things that's coming in, y'all. But I would just say, don't cut yourself off. Don't limit yourself to a self-imposed mental entrapment that you have and fears that you have created in your own mind in regards to how vast this thing can go, how expansive your spiritual evolution can become, and how much you can create and shift your external environment just through your thoughts, your imagination, and your creativity alone. But it has to first start within. You got to have the vision internally first before you can create externally. And so it deals with purging, cleansing, releasing, get rid of those fears, get rid of those that self-limiting mindset that says that you can't rise higher and higher and higher. That's what it's going to take. In order for you to recognize your full potential, you're going to have to keep rising higher and higher in your understanding spiritually. And so that's why you have to stay grounded at the same time. You need to have that balance. And so this is where connecting to nature is very important, because it keeps you grounded as you continue to evolve in your spiritual understanding. And so I feel like the energy is picking up for you all in terms of your understanding here. This message is not for everybody. I feel like this message is for a select few of you who really possess some ancient wisdom. You just haven't fully tapped into your potential because you've been limiting yourself by sitting at the feet of people who want to keep you blinded to your potential, or you just keeping yourself limited because maybe you fear your potential. All right. I think that's the end of the message, y'all. So pay attention if you start seeing spiders around. You might want to come back and reference this message. You know, if you have any dreams of spiders or anything in regards to spiders, then this message I feel is definitely for you, whether it's something that you need to hear now or in the future. My messages are timeless. You can scroll down my timeline from a year ago. You can go to my other channel, Shavi Zane, the Spiritual Counselor, and go all the way back to the very first reading, and you might find that there's something there that resonates with you, because timing is fluid. It's not linear. So if you want a private reading from me, you can always email me. That'll be in the description box. And also, for those of you that are ordering my oils, I do my shipments every Saturday. And so if you want to place an order for my oils, my hair oils, my herb infused hair oils, or my body oils, okay, and be nice and shimmery and stuff like that, then feel free to email me as well. I love you all, and I'll talk to you all next time.